Hi Internet! Hi everyone, Nigel Carlton here. Here today to bring you a video that's a little too late. I'm talking, of course, about my favorite albums of last year, 2013. I understand at this point it's March. With school and work full-time, this is pretty much the first time I've been able to sit down and make this video. But to be honest with you, a lot of these albums are still relevant, and it'd be a great injustice not to give these albums the spotlight that they deserve. So let's get right into it. It was such a great year. I actually have 20 albums, so let's start at number 20. Psychedelic rock band MGMT returned with a really challenging yet exciting third LP. And at number 19, one of the better concept hip-hop albums of last year, Childish Gambino with Because of the Internet. At number 18, if you like your electronic music with a little bit of an ambient influence, maybe some modern horror soundtrack influence, look no further than the Haxan Cloak with Excavation. Killer album cover by At number 17, one of the best free mixtapes to come out last year was Pro Era with Peep the Apocalypse. Some great East Coast hip-hop on this thing. Coming in at number 16, I have a fist-pounding mashup of post-rock, post-punk, hardcore music. It's Ice Age with You're Nothing. At number 15, this is a certified Grammy winner by this point. It's Daft Punk with Random Access Memories. At number 14, Arcade Fire returned with a really dancey and thoroughly enjoyable fourth record with Reflector. And at number 13, Death Grips only released one album this year, and there's still some debate over whether it's a soundtrack or an actual release from the band, but still, great album, Government Plates. That's a free download as well. And at number 12, Danny Brown dropped a new album this year called Old. It was a good representation of both the crazy drug-taking Danny Brown and then the really introspective, dark Danny Brown. And then to close out the first 10 of my list, number 11, Disclosure with their debut LP, Settle. Great mix of house, deep house, synth pop, and I also love all the vocal features on this thing. It's also some of the best produced music I've heard all year. Alright, getting in the top 10 here. At number 10, this was my first introduction to the band actually. Shaking the Habitual by The Knife. It's really dark and it's a politically pessimistic album as far as lyrics are concerned. But musically, it's kind of dancey. There's some world influence to it. It's a really long record. It's almost an hour and a half long, but it's really enjoyable. And number 9, I don't know where the CD is for this, but number 9, Yeezus by Kanye West. This is kind of like a industrial hip-hop record. It's kind of taking a different path for Kanye West. But once again, Kanye just surrounds himself with the best producers and musicians around. And in my opinion, it kind of pales in comparison to some of his earlier releases. But still, it's a new step for Kanye West. And I think if you looked at it as a record that wasn't necessarily in his discography, I think you might enjoy it even more. Coming in at number 8, Auteur Nouveau with Anxiety. Well, I'm not a huge fan of this gaining popularity in R&B. I will say that this guy is unique. He has a unique voice, and also the production on this thing, which was mostly done by Daniel Lopatin and Joel Ford of Software record label. It really adds a unique element to this album. It doesn't sound like any other R&B album that I've heard in a long time, so it's definitely worth checking out. Alright, number 7. Speaking of Daniel Lopatin, hey, it's Oneohtrix Point Never with R+7. For those who don't listen to Oneohtrix Point Never, Daniel Lopatin, he makes very out there electronic music. He uses samples, drones, synthesizers, and other strange sound effects to create a really unorthodox music experience. It's not like anything I can describe, really. I love how this record keeps listeners on the edge of their seats, teasing towards something bigger, and then he kind of takes it back and keeps it kind of minimal at the end. At number 6, I have one of my favorite hip-hop albums of the year, Run the Jewels with their self-titled. Run the Jewels, for those who don't know, is a collaborative effort between LP and Killer Mike. Just really, it's a hard-hitting hip-hop album. The production on here is great. It's done by LP, of course. Overall, what can I say about this thing? I love how balanced it is. LP and Killer Mike both get their time in the spotlight, and they both deliver some great verses. And overall, it's a free record. All you have to do is give them your email address, which is totally worth it. Just give them your email address and get this record. It's great. Alright, number 5. It's Foxygen with We Are the 21st Century Ambassadors of Peace and Magic. This is like one of the best debut full-length albums I've heard all year. If you don't know these guys, they basically take elements of psych rock, folk rock, blues, they just throw it in a blender, they mix it up, and then they just kind of deliver it with this over-the-top attitude. It's kind of a poppy record. There's some mainstream appeal here, but they keep it unique enough that it's really their own band, and not a lot else sounds like it, so it's definitely something you guys should check out. Foxygen. I just remembered I forgot to put that last record right here, so I'm gonna remember on this one. Coming in at number 4, it's James Blake with Overgrown. This is a really solid sophomore release from James Blake. Production-wise, which is kind of what James Blake is known for, it's not as adventurous as his self-titled debut album. This album is a little bit more mature than his self-titled. I think songwriting-wise, he's on his top game here. And if the production and the songwriting don't do it for you, this dude has a great voice. It's in the R&B realm, he's definitely going places. There's rumors that he's actually working on, potentially working on something with Kanye West for this year. One can hope, but yeah. James Blake with Overgrown. Coming in at number 3, we have a band with a really strong discography up to this point. This is probably my favorite record by theirs at this point in time. It's Vampire Weekend with Modern Vampires of the City. Vampire Weekend, for those who don't know, they're kind of like the forerunners of the indie alternative music scene right now. They're really a band that a lot of people enjoy. There's a lot of mainstream appeal there for their really good songwriting, and I think Modern Vampires of the City features some of their best songs yet. After several listens, I think it becomes clear that where their other 2 albums were kind of single-based, this is an album that really stands on its own as a full, cohesive message. Also, from a production standpoint, I think this is one of their best releases yet. Alright, kind of like years previous, my number 2 and my number 1 album, I bounced back and forth. It was kind of a toss-up for me. I had to spend some more time over the past, half of the year that it took me to make this video. I really had a chance to think about it, and at number 2, I have an album. I think that it's going to make fans of this genre. It's one of the best reviewed albums of the year, according to Metacritic, and I think that's because of its crossover appeal. It takes elements of black metal, it takes elements of post-rock and shoegaze, and it mixes them together to create overall one of the best albums of the year. It's Death Heaven with Sunbather. This is kind of like an emotional roller coaster of an album. You have the passages of really intense instrumentation. You have the blast beats, you have the wretches from frontman George Clark. You also have these really gorgeous melodies, really intelligible melodies coming from the guitar, which is something that I kind of, miss out when I listen to a lot of modern metal. I kind of miss the melodies. Lyrically also, this album seems like it's playing in a completely different field than a lot of other black metal releases. George Clark is a really introspective, very poetic writer, and, instead of relying on like the violent attitude of that's common in black metal, he kind of takes an existential approach that's really kind of different, and I enjoyed it a lot. It's not an album for everyone. I understand the vocals we're going to turn a lot of people off right away, but I do think it's worth checking out if you're into rock or if you're into black metal. Something for you guys to check out. Alright, last but certainly not least, the moment you've been waiting for about 4 months. My number 1 album of the year. This is a kind of a debut full-length for these guys. Nicholas Jar, who was in this band, he's known for his solo electronic work. He brought everything he knows about production and sonic craftsmanship to this thing to create really an experience that needs to be listened to. Number 1 is Dark Side with Psychic. The other half of this project, Dave Harrington, he's a guitarist who brings a lot of bluesy, almost old world rock guitar licks and riffs to this thing. Hearing these 2 worlds of kind of blues, rock and roll with this modern coating of electronics is really kind of unsettling at first, and it created a listening experience that I was not expecting. Every time you think you caught everything that's recorded on this album, you realize that's not true. It's endlessly explorable, and you're constantly hearing new sounds that Nicholas Jar and Dave Harrington place in here, kind of under the mix. With its ambient sound effects and interludes, it's just endlessly, you want to listen to this thing from beginning to end every time you listen to it. I think Dave Harrington and Nicholas Jar stumbled upon something really special on this release. It's a forward-thinking album, but it still recalls some of the great moments of musical past. A lot of people are comparing this to maybe Pink Floyd, King Crimson, and I can see where that comparison comes into place. Overall, I just think that this is the album I listen to the most. and I think it's something that a lot of people can enjoy once you start getting into it. There you have it, my top 20 albums of 2013. It took me a long time, and I'm sorry. I'm also going to get back into writing reviews soon for break. Yeah, the school and work screwed me up, man, but it's okay. It's all good. I'll see you guys